Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Dano. I am incredibly thankful for your participation in our Seton Hall University Stillman School of Business AI study. I apologize that my initial webinar and presentation a couple weeks back did not go well and did not recording. So I am recording this a second time for you. It's also going to be easier to share because I uploaded this up to YouTube. With me is one of my partners in crime that I would like to call him. Can I call you a partner in crime, Mr. Chris?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Chris Strom is going to introduce himself in a second, but I am extremely happy that Chris has been with me in my undergraduate digital marketing class all semester. Chris, floor?
I am Chris Strom, Chief Marketing Officer at Sunrise Association. I had the incredible opportunity to teach alongside mentor, friend, and former professor Dr. Dan Laddick, this semester and uh, talk about AI and practical usage of AI for marketers and soon to be students entering the workforce. So excited to be here, Dr. Dana.
Thank you for coming. Now, my goal today is to be helpful. Now, we are still looking at this data that we collected uh, 2 months back at this point. As a matter of fact, I had a 90-minute meeting this morning for us looking at different ways that we can look at the data. But what I wanted to do today is summarize a section of it that I think that could be helpful for you now. So my co-authors here with my in this project is Deborah Lee Surface, David Rosenthal, and also Rob Weitz. So two marketing professors and two professors in the decision sciences. So if we think about these LLMs, this is the fastest adopted technology in history, period. It's probably the most revolutionary shift in technology since the internet. And the internet did not adopt and diffuse at the rate that we're seeing AI adopt and diffuse. This is an absolute perfect quote. A recent KPMG study indicates that most respondents feel that AI will fundamentally change the nature of the business over the next 1 to 2 year horizon. I cannot agree with this even more, which is why we had it in the front half of the study. So today, I want to spend a little time talking about how these large language models, which is the word that we use, it's a little more academic-y, but it's the word that we use as a direct equivalent to saying the AI firms. OpenAI is an LLM. Anthropic is an LLM. I personally like the LLM term a little bit better. It's a little less jargony, but in your mind, please use the phrase artificial intelligence or AI and LLMs interchangeably. We're talking about the exact same thing. So LLMs are pretty good at prediction. This is how these things work, you know. So if I were to say peanut butter, what would be the next most common thing that would come out of your mind if I said peanut butter?
Jelly.
Exactly, peanut butter and jelly. If I said knock knock, you would say,
Who's there?
so this is how these large language models work. They look at all text in the history of humans created, and they take a probability guess of what the next possible set of words or phrases would be. Now, if I said something like, JC120, what would you say?
I wouldn't have a good response.
Right. You know, Chances are it would, but it probably wouldn't have the same probability of everybody saying peanut butter and jelly or knock knock who's there. JC120 is a Roland Jazz Chorus. It's the best jazz guitar amplifier you can buy. That information is out there, but unless you have that burned into your brain the way a jazz guitarist does, it's not going to be that top of mind. And I use this as an example because this is probability. These models don't think, even though they use the word thinking. A little uncomfortable. It's more marketing speak than actual technology use. But this phrase, living in the world of possibility, is where these LLM models lie. So, what I want to do is see if I can help with AI fluency for the group today. This was a clean set of questions that were presented and everyone in the sample answered. So, by the end of these 15 questions, I and Chris feel that you will have a stronger fluency of exactly what these LLMs are and what they can and cannot do well. And then we have some recommendations on the back end as well. So everyone here on this call answered this question. And the question was submitting the same prompt or the same question to an LLM multiple times over a short time period will yield identical results. And you think about it, this is absolutely false. When we live in this world of probability, we can't guarantee consistency. We can't guarantee what the exact next set of words is going to be outputted by the LLM. In general, LLMs are not strong with discrete facts. It's not a Google search. And what I did was when you see true, false, don't know, no opinion, that means 99% of the 99 of the 204 people answered true, 86 said false, 19 said don't know, no opinion. Oh, sorry about that. Let me go back. Anything else to add there, Chris?
No, I think people do treat it as a Google search, though, which is kind of interesting. And it's one of I think your data kind of shows this, that people do think it's a Google search or the equivalent of, and it just shines a light on the literacy needed in the space.
All righty. True or false? LLMs understand words in concepts the same way we humans understand them. This is absolutely false. Not even close. The LLMs do not reason. The LLMs do not think. They're just making a prediction on what the next possible word could be in a sequence of words. So there's no way for the LLM to even know. 106 of us thought this was true. 91 thought of us it was false, and 7 of us didn't have an opinion on this one. This was pretty straightforward, Chris. Yes.
Yeah, I think we'll continue to talk about reason, as you alluded to in the intro, throughout these questions, and what is the definition of reason, and whether it's just marketing speak, as you talked about, or how exactly it's playing out in these LLMs. But yep.
All right, here we go. Question 3 of 15. The LLM refers to a dictionary or some equivalent source to determine the meaning of the words in a prompt or the question. You think about it. Oh, this is absolutely false. So the LLMs have a database, a corpus of everything you can think of. Every book, every YouTube video has been scraped, every social media post has been scraped. Um, there's a whole other ethical angle to I'm using the word scrape, whether they acquired the information legally or not legally. I'm being polite here. But LLMs do not understand context or meaning. They do not refer back to a dictionary. There are multiple dictionaries and encyclopedias, and even Wikipedia, I'm sure, is in the corpus and in the database. But they don't fact check there. Absolutely not. And a
Agreed
lot of
that,
us thought that this was true. Chris.
yeah, like you said, there's dictionaries within the training set, but when they're looking at like the word peanut butter, they are not only referencing dictionary, Wikipedia, and those style sources, but they're also looking at possibly Reddit data. They're looking at internet forums. They're looking at scraped YouTube video. So yeah, it's a much larger corpus, as you said, than just the single source.
I mean, if we would have asked Elvis, what's the most next set of words that comes after peanut butter, he would say banana sandwich. He would not say jelly, you know. LLMs can do math well. LLMs can do mathematical calculations reliable. This is absolutely false. I can say they're getting much better. But LLMs are much better with words than they are with discrete facts. It doesn't do math well. We actually had a discussion about this amongst Chris and the professors on this project. We ran a number of tests, and it could not match the numbers that we were calculating in Excel. Um, I would not trust it with math. Even though it's getting much faster and much better, we're still not there. And a lot of people thought this was true. 146 of you.
Yeah, I think the new quote unquote reasoning models are performing much better at math than, say, a GPT 4.0 like OpenAI's previous flagship model. The new O series does excel at math and is starting to make big strides. But I think with whether it's even language or mathematics, you can't trust 100%. It's not fact. It's needs to be verified every time if you're going to count on the data being output by these LLMs.
Next up, if you ask an LLM a factual question, it will always give you the correct answer. I hope we're catching a theme here, but this is absolutely false. Most probably not. Um, like we said earlier, if you ask the same question a couple minutes apart, you're not going to get the same answer. There will be variation. Um, and really, the LLM is just about predicting what the next possible word will be. A lot of us thought it was true, 50-50 split here almost pretty much.
And that's not to say, Dr. Dana, that it's not going to get a good amount of simple questions right. This isn't 100% of the time it's not factual. It's just that it's at a place right now where it's very unreliable and it cannot be trusted for a high fidelity of factual responses.
Right. I mean, if we do, who is the 17th president of the United States? Okay, that's a Google search.
Mhm.
That's a discrete answer. LLMs are not excellent, being very polite here, at discrete answers. That's not their strength. But asking an LLM to write you 4 paragraphs or to present a counter argument to this 185 word email that you're writing to your boss, LLMs are really good at that. Really good at that. True or false? Every LLM answers questions solely by relying on its own body of knowledge. Ding, ding, ding. This is our first true. This is our first true. Now, when we say their own body of knowledge, an LLM goes through editions or cycles. What are we calling them, Chris?
I don't know. They're being released so quickly now. I don't even know that they have a term. They say training sets, up until this time, there's cutoff data,
Right.
cutoff times.
So you will see one of the major AI companies say our latest model is trained on data up through December 31st, 2024. So all knowledge, all text, everything, they cut the training off at that date. And then they have to tune the algorithm. And they used to spend like 9, 12, 18 months doing the tuning before they would release it to the wider public like ourselves. You know, the tuning part has actually been cut down significantly to the point where it's definitely less than 6 months in most cases. And sometimes it's probably even in the 2 to 3 to 4 month range where they added more stuff to the training set. They did some red hat testing and they had some expert users use it before it gets out to the wider public. Just within the last 2 weeks, there was, I wouldn't call it a brouhaha, but it was OpenAI that all the responses were just too much flattery, too much. What were we calling that?
Get what the term was, but they agreed with you. I mean, you could throw out the most ridiculous idea and they would flatter you and say, "Oh, what a wonderful idea, Dr. Dano." They rolled that out, and then I think they rolled it back within days. So, unlike your traditional tech company, like say an Apple, who releases products on a 6 month, 12-month basis, these LLMs or the leading AI labs are iterating and releasing models monthly, weekly, and there isn't this nice rhythm as we've had in the past with our tech companies. It's a much more rapid evolution and iteration.
and
Um,
approximately 50% of us thought did get this correct.
yeah.
About 50% of us, we're batting 500 here, roughly.
So, Dr. Dana, I will say that the one caveat here is this context window. So, while you
Oh,
prompt,
excuse me, Chris. We have a prompt question coming up. So,
all right, I'll wait.
yeah, I know where you're headed. I
Yeah,
like that
all right,
thought. Let's get it to
great.
the prompt question. All right. Every LLM answers questions solely by doing web searches. Well, we just had the previous question. This is absolutely positively false, 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 false. It makes me a little nervous that more people more people got this, enough people said true. We're still close to 50%. But LLMs are trained on their training data. They have a database, and we just explained that in the previous question. It is not a search engine. However, some of them are starting to incorporate search and has a separate output pane. Um, Anthropic just added it less than a couple months ago, less than a month ago.
Yeah. So Anthropic has incorporated web search. ChatGPT has a web search. It's unclear when they'll toggle that web search. You can implicitly say, yes, I want to search the web. There is a toggle for that. But some of the Omni models, the O series, they may or may not do a web search based on the prompt. So yeah, it's a mixture of where it's at. It's not incorporating web searches 100% of the time.
Agreed. True or false? LLMs learn new information, meaning they're updating their knowledge continuously. And you already know this one. This is absolutely positively false. Um, we've explained how the training data set flows from their workflow. It scares me that 146 of us thought that this was true. But each one of these editions has a cutoff, it has boundaries to go from. And if we're using it for spell checking or translating languages or all kinds of items like that, those tasks, it's not a problem. It's only when we want to have to deal with discrete facts where this could be a problem.
Yeah, the LLMs have their memory has started to improve, and ChatGPT in particular in the last couple of months has flipped the switch so that when answering questions or responding to prompts, their output uh, goes outside of the training set and references content that you've put in. So it knows my name is Chris. It knows that I work for a nonprofit, and it knows these items. But again, that's contextual to me and our chat history. So while it's not learning and updating its broader training set on the regular in real time, it is storing data about a particular user and referencing it in conversation.
And the AI firms are calling this memory,
Yep.
which is the term that Chris used. I mean, here's a pretty good analogy. Uh, Google stores cookies in your browser, Chrome, and Google uses that information to tailor search preferences in your direction. It has that air quotes memory as part of the process.
Yep.
How's that for an analogy, sir?
Yeah, it's a great analogy. I mean, the memory that these LLMs have, especially for power users like myself, is you could call it more intelligent than a cookie for sure. But it's an interesting analogy for sure.
I mean, Chris and I both have spent a lot of time in the SEO and blogging worlds, and we can't Google our own stuff because there's so much history in our browsing
Yep.
data
Hmm.
that the only way for us to get a clean search is to delete all that and delete all your cookies, which we do on a somewhat regular basis, but not a daily basis.
Hmm.
I mean, I always usually steal someone else's laptop and do my searches on someone else's laptop.
Hmm.
It's a cleaner test.
Yep.
True or false? An LLM's responses are based on content that has been verified to be accurate. Chris, I see you shaking your head. What's the answer to this question?
False.
False. Not just false, absolutely false.
Hmm.
Absolutely false. 123 of us thought that this was true. The LLMs don't care about truth. They don't care about facts. They just predict what's the next most probable word. That's it. That's it. True or false? An LLM's responses are free of bias. Chris is shaking his head again. I mean, we even use the term hallucinate when we're talking about these LLMs. They make stuff up. They want to give you an answer. They will give you fake references. They will give you fake quotes. They'll invent presidents that were never presidents. they'll they'll change history. Um, and more than anything else, think about how these models are created. They're scraping data from where? Twitter. Oh, that's a very centered in PBS style, free of bias, journalism, editorial, Reddit, Facebook. Social media is a very, very large chunk of the training data. But then even like the New York Times, which it's still a journalistic, publication, the New York Times still has a slant.
Absolutely. Yeah, in Dr. Dano, it's important to distinguish between the hallucinations and the bias. Hallucinations happen when it just doesn't it has a gap in its training set and is not able to accurately predict that next word. It'll go ahead and fabricate an answer versus if you think like what was um, the example with the cheese and the pizza and glue.
Right. So there was an example. They eventually traced it back to Reddit. People were goofing around. How do you make the best pizza? Well, you put rocks and glue, and that's how you get the cheese to stay on. You glue it down, and it's it was just farcical coming from Reddit.
Yeah, and so yeah, bias is inherent to a person's perspective and their point of view when publishing on the web. And if it's training on that data, it's going to inherit. There's no way for it not to be bias.
I mean, one of the things you can do, we're going to have recommendations in a couple of slides from here. We highly do recommend when you're in your prompting mode that you do ask for different opinions. You could use the LLM as your own devil's advocate.
Mhm.
And we highly recommend that you use the LLM to be a devil's advocate because it's actually really good at doing something like that.
Yeah.
True or false? If an LLM can't accurately answer a question, it will reliably say so. It will actually tell you it can't answer a question. Oh, come on, Chris.
Nope.
Nope. Oh, no. As a matter of fact, they want to make you happy. They do hallucinate, but they also lie. And you'll actually have to prompt it a couple of times before it says, "Oh yeah, I made that up." That's not actually, you know, they're not in the truthful business. They're not in the even the truthiness business. You know, it's
Yeah,
not their business.
what one of their system prompts, one of the kind of core pieces of the system prompt that they're given is that you are a helpful assistant. And this notion of helpful assistant is if you don't know the answer, you're not helpful. So that's where I think a lot of the hallucination, a lot of the fabrication of answers that it doesn't know come up because it wants to be helpful. It wants to be they're ready with the answer and it doesn't always have the correct answer and it hallucinates.
True or false? The accuracy or the error rate of an LLM output is known, not even close. It's unknown and it's probably not even tracked because it's not important to the process of creating output. Again, we keep coming to this new technology with metaphors in our head of how we think it should work or what we are expecting it to do. And what we want to do today is to do our best to set the record straight and show, something. This is how these things really work. They have strengths and they have weaknesses. We don't know what the error rate is. I'm sure that companies know in some way, shape, or form, but that's not their goal. Accuracy is not their goal. Prediction is their goal. All right, Chris, I'm teeing you up here. The way the prompt is worded can have a significant effect on the response an LLM gives or outputs. Chris,
Absolutely.
this is the most true of all the questions and statements that we could make today. The prompt and how you start any AI effort is the absolute most important thing. You want to go into what you were going to say earlier there, amigo?
Yeah, so the prompt, absolutely. It's kind of interesting. I'll take this from another angle, Dr. Dano, is that a couple of years ago when ChatGPT came onto the scene, I think prompt engineering was looked at as, okay, well, this is going to be the next job, and there's going to be prompt engineers at every organization, and that's going to be a hot new job title. And I just read something in Fast Company here, 2.5 years into this Gen AI explosion, and that never materialized. There's not people hiring specifically for prompt engineers. There's a lot of other AI related roles, but I think the prompt is such an important part of using these LLMs, and it's going to be core to everybody who uses them. This is a skill just like everybody in the workforce over the last 20, 25 years learned how to use Google effectively. This is like that times 10, 100x. And being able to correctly or build prompts that get to the core of what kind of output you want, and then iterating on those prompts and working them is going to be such a core part of what professionals do when working with LLMs today and into the future.
I'm super excited. Everybody had this one. About 178 of us had this one. Let me stress that last part that Chris just brought up is the iteration. Let's do a quick 30-second example. You're looking for exciting, effective email subject headers that you're going to send out to clients because you're trying to do inbound marketing, content marketing, lead generation. Well, you could, as part of the prompt, feed the LLM your top 20 most successful email campaigns as part of the prompt. And you could say, based on these 20, give me 50 more. And then it will give you 50 more in about 15 seconds on the high side.
Yep.
And then you look at that 50 and you say, number 10, number 25, number 35, 36, 37, 42, and 48 are clearly the best ones. Give me 15 more like those. And this iteration, this back and forth, is really the best way to use these LLM. Never, ever, ever trust the first output that's been distributed by any of these models.
I
The
think
first
that
output is always the worst.
I think that there was a deliberate decision and reasoning behind making the interface with these a chat bot, a chat dialogue. It wasn't, hey, let's submit a form, click submit, and then you're emailed a response. No, you have the ability to iterate right within this dialogue box. And I think that was a very deliberate decision on OpenAI's part within the ChatGPT product, and all of the ones since then is that it's meant to be a conversation. It's meant to be refined. It's meant to iterate on your original prompt. It's not a one shot. And that's not to say that you can't, uh, you know, uh, do the hit jackpot on a one prompt on the slot machine. It can
I don't know about
happen,
that.
but for the most part, you need to be iterating, you need to be refining, and you need to. I think a lot of what we need to do as professionals also is find what prompts work, stuff them in our prompt library, or save them to a file so that we can reference them and continue to work on them uh, in the future.
I mean, I'm a college professor. I want to hammer this item home strongly to my students. And I tell them that their first output is D plus, C minus work at best. The only way that you would ever get an output up to a B, B plus, A minus is two, three, four iterations. I think you definitely could do it, but it's not a one shot, one slot machine pull. No, absolutely not. No, 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 no. True or false? All inputs into these LLMs are confidential. That is, what you input is not stored or shared anywhere. All right, this is a little bit complicated, but this is mostly false. You know, I'm saying absolutely false, wrong, incorrect. Depending on how much you're paying, if you're using custom GPTs, what level of security you have in your agreement with the AI company. There are some sandboxes that are actually a full sandbox and they're not shared back into the entire corpus of the LLM. But the LLM's trying to learn. The LLM could learn from your outputs and your prompts and your information, and it could become part of the general model unless you have some protection. How did I do there, Chris?
Yeah, this is where the closed source versus open source debate is raging on. There are open source models. The big one from China, DeepSeek, is an open source model. The one that Meta puts out, Llama, is open source. These are models that can be downloaded to capable machines. You cut off the internet and you could be working with the LLM on a not connected device, which means that that data is relegated to the machine it's on, and it's not going back to the cloud and being trained on potentially, like OpenAI, Anthropic, or Google Gemini, some of these other leading AI labs and their LLMs. So that's another big kind of caveat to this as well.
I mean, and again, a lot of these questions, we can all say, well, the trend has been changing over time. But if we were to have this conversation in 2023, early, mid, late 2023, there was a lot of advertising agencies that were throwing a lot of data in there. A lot of it was client data, and all that data got sucked up into the model because they weren't used to using these things. It wasn't really clear that the open AIs of the world were being transparent with what was going on. It was We're still in the Wild Wild West, but that was really the Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
Really the Wild Wild
Mhm.
West. LMs are equally effective in all languages. What are you going to say to this one, Chris?
Yeah, I'd say it's something that they excel in. They've been trained on a huge variety of languages and really excel at this.
You know, from the very beginning, all of these AI firms have started with text. And there is no question that they are very good with text. And they tend to be really good with languages in general because every book that's ever written is in these databases. And it's a lot easier for them to start with words and they were trained with words. I mean, just in the last 3 to 4 months, have we really started seeing the text to image stuff get pretty good? It's still not as good as what a human can do, but it's a lot better than what it was before. It was pretty weak, to be honest with you. But language, oh yeah, very good with language, very good with text, very good all along those lines. Translation, transcriptions, analysis of text, summarizing, really good ways to use these tools to make you more productive. Recommendations going forward. So, me and my team at Seton Hall are incredibly thankful for your time in filling out our survey. We will have more data to share, and I have my email address in this video, and it's easy to do a Google search and find Dr. Dano. You know, but we wanted to leave you with some recommendations, from things to go forward with, some additional thoughts, and also some practices. We can say that, oh boy, pick your metaphor. The train has left the station, the genie is out of the bottle. There is no turning this clock back to October 2022. To me, this very much feels like the internet circa 1995, where everybody's heard of AI. No one can easily explain it. You just saw the responses to the true false questions. Very few people are really true wizards at using it. What we need to do is experiment with these tools. You know, they're all incredibly helpful as a productivity tool. Think about it as an incredible calculator when I'm old enough to remember when I was not allowed to use calculators in school. Chris is laughing at me. That's not fun, but Chris is laughing at me. There are incredible efficiencies to be found here. And what we want you to start thinking about is every time you do a task in the next week or 2 weeks, think to yourself, maybe I should try something different. I mean, replacing your Google searches with a perplexity search or a new, besides perplexity, I mean, you're using OpenAI just as much. You're using, which model are you using now the most, you think?
Yeah, ChatGPT is my go-to model. It's interesting, Dr. Dan. There's a little bit of lock-in happening as well with these. This is outside the recommendation, but I built such an ecosystem with one particular system that's really my go-to. But for users that are new to this, all of these LLMs, whether it's Claude by Anthropic or ChatGPT by OpenAI or Gemini
Gemini.
by Google, they're all fantastic. And like Dr. Dano said, it's all about experimentation and trying out. These are, another way of thinking of AI is augmented intelligence. It's a way for you to build on your expertise and knowledge. So it's an opportunity for you to go there, make those efficiency gains, use it as a brainstorming partner, use it to do the text summarization, meeting notes. The uses are endless, but it's really about experimentation and building up competency through use. This is not a tool where you're going to have an IT department say, "Oh, they're going to be the AI people." It's going to be everybody in the workforce is going to be using these tools if they're not already in the very near future.
I mean, Microsoft's product is called Copilot. We've thrown a lot of metaphors around today. That might be the best metaphor.
Yeah, it's a fantastic, fantastic product name. Not a
There's,
fantastic product, but a fantastic product name.
there's not one Boeing airplane or Airbus airplane globally that can take off, fly, and land itself. There has to be a human in the loop. But these planes they have an incredible autopilot. They're really good with helping you do this, that, or the other thing. But the plane itself is not automated. I have a Tesla. My Tesla, even though it's called autopilot, it is not an autopilot. It is augmented or assisted driving. It is not auto driving by any stretch of the imagination. Other things for you to think about. Is your firm offering any training? If they are, raise your hand immediately. Do you have any friends at work that are offhandedly or that are using this a lot? Start taking them to lunch. Take him or her to happy hour. Go to breakfast with them. Buy a coffee. Start picking everyone's brain you possibly can. I'm a fan of LinkedIn Learning. I'm actually putting a LinkedIn Learning course together for my students who some of them will be having internships this summer. Some of them should be doing 20 hours of LinkedIn Learning work this summer and have 4, 5, 6 different certifications on their resume. Coursera is also very good. edX is also very good, where you can get like on demand or downloadable AI coursework. And you all go for walks, you all do exercise. I'm doing laundry right now. I'm going to do yard work later. Put the earbuds in, and there are some amazing podcasts out there. The Artificial Intelligence Show is fantastic. Chris actually goes to the conference. Hard Fork is from the New York Times. It is Very, very good. And Ethan Mollick is another professor from the University of Pennsylvania. He has a newsletter. Put Ethan Mollick's name into YouTube or any podcast player. Find any of his interviews. He's super, super sharp. What did I forget here, Chris?
You got it all, Dr. Dana. Yeah, I think the most important thing is this is not a technology that is a fad. It's not oh, next year it'll be something else. No, this is a fundamental shift in the way that we do knowledge work and the way that intelligence is leveraged in the workforce, in our organizations, our companies, the economy. And this is not something to snooze on. This is something that you need to be in the know. You don't need to be an expert. It helps if you can get expertise in this, but the most important thing is experiment and learn at this point.
And say to yourself, you have not missed this boat yet. There's no we are in such early days. And even the experts that started in January of 2023, most of the stuff that happened in 2023 and for the most part of 2024 is gone already. And all that kicking the tires that they did earlier then isn't all that helpful now. But what is helpful is they started getting comfortable with little wins here and there. And then the model got better, the model changed, and they realized, oh, I can do this now. It's a mindset shift more than anything else. Like, I really do want you to say to yourself every time over the next week, every time you go to Google, say, oh, maybe I shouldn't be going to Google. Every time you're checking something out on Wikipedia, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Anytime you have to build a report where you have to look through, I don't know, a really big document, like for instance, every so often, even though I'm a marketing professor, a tech company will do their S1 and file to become a publicly traded company, and it's like a 400-page document. What did I used to do? Drop that into Word and do manual searches. Now I can drop that in the Notebook LLM and ask for a 10-minute audio summary of the thing, and it'll do it in like a minute and a half. So between the time that I have to go to that meeting in a half hour from now, I can listen to a 10-minute podcast of a 400-page document. I think we have, oh, that's one of my students where I did that. The last thing I want to do beyond thanking everyone again here is I'm going to also include a link to an episode from a different podcast that I also think is pretty good. And the entire podcast is around prompting. They have a nice little acronym called DICCE, which is your reminder of the 5 things you need to do every time you make a prompt. You give it a role, you give it context. I'm going to be sending that to everyone as well. Chris, I'm going to thank you as well.
Thank you, Dr. Dana.
Thumbs
This
up,
is a
appreciated.
blast. Thank
And
you.
let me go back to the very beginning, just so everybody has it and they don't have to scroll back. There's my contact information on the screen. If you have further questions or you would like the next round of the data that we're going to output, send me an email and I'll keep you in the loop. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your energy. I appreciate it and have an absolute wonderful day. Peace out.